So, good morning, everyone. This is Ali Azzuddin from 4th Generation for Education, and this is our third webinar for this special day about assessment. I can see many people who are saying hello again, which means they've been with us since the morning. I can see gems, people are watching from Lebanon, from Mauritius, from South Korea, from Singapore, Iceland, from China, from KSA, Dubai, South Africa, and I am not sure if we will have people from Americas and Latin America. It's maybe their midnight. Usually these people, they join or very early in the morning or in the last session. I can see also people from Australia, Iraq, Jordan. So you see the whole planet is here and represented by the participants who are following our event. I'm so excited to collaborate with you this morning. And let's say hello to Julie, because that's how we met and we made our connection when we were invited for the launching of her book. And James, so you need to unmute. And
there you go.
Let's know a little bit about who you are, and then we can give it a start with the presentation and what did you prepare for us. I need just to remind everyone, in the chat, you select to everyone. On Facebook, I'm also monitoring the Facebook interaction. And then if you have any question for James, don't hesitate to send it in the Q&A. We will have a moment for this question at the end of the webinar. So James, it's yours. I'm happy to listen to you and all the participants also.
Thank you very much, Ali, for the invitation. It's lovely to join you. I'm going to share my screen, if I may, and that'll give you some connections to where I'm from and what I'm offering and so on. So I'm going to talk about how we use assessment to improve learning outcomes. And I've prepared an event page. So if you go to the bit.ly link that I've just shared at the bottom of the screen there, you will find later today a PDF of the slides that I've used this morning, plus some links to videos and so on. So that is there for you. It is case sensitive though, so you do need uppercase E and uppercase JN in that bit.ly link. So Ali, you said, where am I from? This is my house, Ali. Okay. So I live outside of that house, unfortunately, but that is one of the many, many castles that we have around here, because I live on the border between England and Scotland in a town called Berwick-upon-Tweed, and it is the border. In fact, it's changed hands 13 times. England and Scotland have been fighting over it. Not fighting over it because they want it, but fighting over it because they don't want it. So we have lots of castles. That one I can see actually out of my window right now. And this one you can see from our office in Alnwick. So if you are a Harry Potter fan, you will have seen that castle being used for all the Quidditch scenes. And then this one I can also see out of my window there. That is Lindisfarne Castle. That's where the Vikings first landed in Britain. It wasn't really a very fair fight. Our monks were reading their Bibles and drinking beer, and along came the Vikings. So it was hardly a fair fight.
It's very inspiring to write novels and stories.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, you can imagine when I try to write books, I just sit staring out of the window most of the time, and 3 hours passes and I've written like 2 words or something.
Yeah.
But and these are my 3 kids, and I've also got 4 of these little miniature sausage dogs. So I'm very proud of my sausages. But like you, Ali, I work with people around the world. I've actually got a team. There's 25 of us across the world, including USA, UK, Australia, and then Scandinavian countries as well. And these are some of the topics that we work on. I'm going to be talking about assessment. I'm going to be talking about feedback this morning, but these are some of the things that we work with schools, with preschools, with colleges, with districts, and so on. So yes, thank you to you and thank you to Julie. You and I met during a webinar that Julie Stern had organized, so it's lovely to make that connection. Assessment, then, I'm going to use the word feedback and assessment interchangeably. I know for some people they're very, very different and they mean very different things, but I hope you forgive me that I'm going to use them today in an interchangeable way. Assessment is one of the most significant influences on student learning. If you take out the things that you and I cannot change, we cannot change the amount of money that our school has. We cannot change the number of students that our school has, or the quality of the school buildings, or the expectations and the aspirations of the parents. These are things that we don't have very much influence over. So take out those things and just look at what is it that as a leader or a teacher I can influence. Then assessment is one of the most significant influences on student learning. In fact, it's in the top 10 influences. However, and this is the problem, it's also one of the most variable influences. The typical effect size of feedback, of assessment, is 0.64. Now, for those who are not familiar with effect size, the average effect, if you look at the work of John Hattie, for example, who has collected together thousands of meta-analyses, the average progress a student will make in 1 year as an effect size is 0.4. So anything more than 0.4 means they are learning more. This effect size, 0.64, that is equivalent to students making 18 months progress in 12 months. In other words, an extra 50% learning compared to normal. So that's really impressive. That's the average effect for feedback, but the range is really significant. Look at this, huge range from all the way down at 0.15 up to 1.17. There's a lot of data out there. There's a lot of evidence about feedback. A huge amount, in fact, one of the most studied aspects of learning. And yet, very many of us are not getting the impact that we should get. I mentioned I've written a few books, so if after this webinar you want to know more about it, here are some of the books that I've written. I've actually written 11 so far, but I've drawn attention to 9 of the books that are relevant to today. And the one that I've put in the biggest, boldest, that, of course, challenging learning through feedback would be the most relevant. If you work with young students, though, this one is better. So if you work with, let's say, students up to the age of about 7 or 8, then that would be a better book for you. In each of the books that I've written, you will find margin notes and chapter summaries, because Ali, you and I were talking about this. They're pretty big books. There you go. There you go.
So but I highly recommend, and I think, like, depending on your interest, you can pick one of these books, because they are for different audience, as you are talking. For the leaders, it's about dialogue, about feedback, about the mindset. And then I saw that you have one for early years. The books are very easy to read and to go through. And then, yes, your introduction and then your summary creates very beautiful connection. And I would say that you're modeling the teaching and learning even in your writing approach.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you. Thank you, Ellie. I'll pay you later for saying that. Thank you very much. So yes, you can find these, and actually on our website as well. There's lots of connections. So if you wanted to look at this website, challenginglearning.com, then you can choose the books section and then look at the feedback book, and you'll find lots of examples like downloads, and you'll find different aspects of the book as well. You'll also find some videos online that we've put where either I'm talking about feedback or we're showing feedback in action. Ali, you had me almost dizzy talking about the different places you've been just in the last few weeks. I mean,
yes.
I have this theory that you keep moving just so that nobody catches you. But we've got some, I think that video is from Denmark actually, so, but it's got English subtitles, so that, I hope that's okay for folks. But then there's videos where I talk about feedback as well.
No,
okay,
just
so
to say that you might feel that the books, they are very thick, they are very big, but this was like my first impression. Oh, this is a book that needs a lot of time, but no, the reading goes in a very easy way, especially that what is nice in the book, James, there is a lot of examples. And so the teachers, they can really take these examples, adjust them based on the level, the culture where they are, and then they adapt them.
Yes, I think that's really important. It's why I do what I do right now. When I was a teacher, when I was a leader, I was often very frustrated by listening to professors talking about really inspirational research. But then we would think, but how are we going to put that into the classroom? What are we going to do? You know, it's really interesting, like this research that, you know, feedback's really variable. Okay, great. But what do we do? How do we do it? You know, and so I wanted to make sure that we have that connection between research and practice. And here you go. Here's some really well-tested, well-tried out strategies that you can use in the classroom. So I'll give you an overview in this webinar today, and then, as I say, there are these possibilities to go deeper if you want to. So I'm going to start with the dirty little secret in the world of research on feedback. What we often don't talk about is 1/3 of the studies on feedback show a negative outcome. 1/3 of the time, it would be better if we shut up and say nothing, because we're making it worse. And that's like, okay, that's a problem. We thought feedback was really powerful. Well, it is, but 1/3 of the time, it has a negative outcome. And Ali, I want to draw attention to, I'm talking about negative effects, negative outcomes. One part of feedback that's really important is we ought to stop thinking so much about what we are doing and instead think, what is the outcome here? What is the effect of this? And I'm going to come back to this later also. So it's less about, am I giving positive feedback or am I giving negative feedback? It's not about that. It's about what is the effect of this feedback. You see, I'm sorry to report that when I was a student at school, I hated school. I mean, the best day of my school life was the day I left school, and I was I was kicked out of 2 high schools for bad behavior, you know, and a lot of teachers told me, you will never make anything of yourself. You're a waste of time and space. Now, everybody, I'm sure, would agree that that was a negative thing to say. However, it had a positive effect, because I thought to myself, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to show you that I'm not a waste of time and I'm not a waste of space. But Ali, I'm not recommending this as a strategy. Go and tell all your students that they're a waste of time and space, and hope that they'll prove you wrong. Don't do that.
Yeah, you're reminding me, James, of my grade 9 experience with a spelling test. We had every week a spelling test, and our spelling test, they were over 100. So 10 mistakes equals 0. And so they were not prepared tests. And so like we had like 35 weeks, I got 35-0. And,
yeah.
And even though I said like, I wanted to write, I want to put stories, I want to publish for the kids. And now when I just share my experience about writing picture books, I tell them, I know in the market, there is a job called like editor. Someone will read a proofreader. And these people are different from the creative people. And so that's why when we look at all these experiences that we connect to each other. And so if Ali is creative and James is very good in grammar and spelling, and I don't know, he's very good in illustration, the three of them can create a product.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Totally.
People are putting a lot of ideas in that chat, which is very interesting. I think we are engaging them in this webinar.
That's lovely. That's lovely. So let me draw us to this idea of effects. So teachers told me very negative things, and yet it had a positive outcome. But the reverse is often true also. I could give very positive sounding feedback, but if I give it at the wrong time, it can have a negative outcome. So for example, let's say, Ali, you are struggling with your spelling, you're finding it really hard. And if I give feedback that actually tells you how to do it right, but I give you that too soon, and I stop you struggling, and therefore I stop you learning, that has a negative outcome, even though it's a positive thing. So we have to think, feedback is about helping students to grow, to flourish, to learn more. 1/3 of the time, we get it wrong. There's also a really fascinating bit of research, and this comes from Graham Nuttall, a professor from New Zealand, who spent years recording conversations in classrooms. He put microphones on children's clothes, he put microphones on the tables, and he recorded everything that they talked about and talked to each other about. And then he would take it back to his office and he would transcribe all of this. Can you imagine what kind of life he had when he was listening to all of this stuff? And what he found was 80% of the verbal feedback that students get during the day comes from other students, and most of it is wrong. Now, if you want to improve feedback, one of the best ways to do it is teach students how to give feedback to each other. You and I, Ali, can give feedback to our students, and we can think about how to make that better. We can think about how to get our students to use it better. But one of the most significant ways to improve feedback or assessment in school is to teach students how to give it to each other, and also how to receive it and use it. At the heart of all of this, I think, is a common misconception, a common problem, and I think it is based in very old practice, and very old practice that around about the time when comprehensive education began, when we started to educate all children rather than just the wealthy children or the religious children. We started to educate all children. And at that time, feedback meant I am going to tell you, Ali, whether you got it right or whether you got it wrong. And that's it. Even today, there is still this misconception. I put a search term into Google and I put kids and feedback to see what kind of images come up. And these were the sorts of images that I saw. Notice it's all about kids being happy that they've done very well or being sad that they haven't done very well. And that's it. And I think that is one of the biggest problems that we've got. Whereas if we change the feedback terms, and instead of kids and feedback, we change it to kids and coaching, then you come across very different images. And I would suggest to you one basic principle of feedback or assessment is, please, please, please think about feedback should be much more about coaching and far less about refereeing. We are there to help our students to improve, to get better at what they are doing, to think more about how they are interacting, or how they are accessing the information, or how they are manipulating these ideas, or how they are presenting their ideas. And so, Ali, I'm going to summarize what I think feedback is based on all of the evidence that I've found in other people's research, based on the work that I do. I would summarize feedback as follows. Feedback is good advice that is well used to improve learning or the application. And notice the background to this slide. Everything else is just white noise. Everything else is a distraction. If in your school, and I've come across schools where they are spending lots of time deciding on whether they should use a red pen or a green pen or a purple pen. I mean, for goodness sake, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. The absolute key to this is that it should be advice. So not, what shall we say, assessment in the terms of, Ali, I'm going to give you 9 out of 10 for this webinar. Well done. Right. Well, what does that mean? Ali, good effort. Well done. Again, how does that help you? I mean, maybe it's nice that I give you a pat on the back, but it isn't feedback, because I need to think about feedback as coaching, as improvement, as advice. And then I also need to make sure you have time and the expectation to use it, and to use it to improve either your learning and or your application. And let me give you a very quick insight into what I mean by application, and then I'll see what you think to this, Ali. But if I give you the sense of application, I'm talking about such things as effort, strategy, focus, belief, perseverance. So it's all of those, and those are just a few examples. So I was thinking long and hard about the words to use on this slide, and I very nearly put to improve your learning or your effort. And then I thought, no, I can't say effort, because sometimes you don't want to put more effort in. Why would you put more effort into the wrong thing? It's got to be about strategy. It's got to be about focus. Sometimes it's about stop looking at this and look at that. Sometimes it's about, okay, just stop a minute, step back. Are you using the right strategy? Is there a better strategy that we can use? So it's not about rolling up your sleeves and putting more effort in. Sometimes it's about stopping and thinking and considering. So
in the chat, James, we are giving reference to the word feed forward, especially that our previous session, it was about feed forward. And so what do you think about this connection? Or do you also use feed forward like you are using assessment or feedback?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people, excuse me, a lot of people who use feed forward as a term, and I understand why they do it, because feedback too often has been used to look back over what a student has done. However, the problem is that when you look at the research here, there's actually a lot of feedback that does work, a lot of feedback that works. So what we need to think is, well, what is it that works then? What is the kind of feedback that works? And the kind of feedback that works answers 3 questions. What am I aiming to achieve? How much progress have I made so far? And really importantly, if you want feedback to work, it's, and what should I do next to improve? And that 3rd step, Ali, is what people call feed forward.
Yeah.
And there's quite a lot of evidence that people who use feed forward will struggle sometimes because students will think if feed forward is looking forward, then that means feedback is looking back, when actually the right way to do feedback is to look back and forward. So in summary, I would say, exactly, if you use the term feed forward, fine, but always, always, always talk about feed forward as part of the feedback setup. So it's one aspect. It's not either you do feed forward or you do feedback. Feed forward is part of the feedback approach. The best feedback answers those 3 questions. What am I aiming to achieve? How much progress have I made so far? And this is really important. And what should I do next? And where it goes wrong, and this is why I think feed forward can be useful, but where it goes wrong is far too often we set out what the kids need to do, we give them a chance to do it, and then the kids come to us and say, did I do it right? And then they also ask, and what's my grade? You know,
but again, it's not only the kids, it's the parents when they come to you
sure.
and they tell you, oh, what is his ranking in the classroom, and then is he the first or the second?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why I asked if I could go at this session this morning, is it's 8:30 here in the UK, is because this afternoon my 3 kids are swimmers, and they've got quite a big swimming gala. And I got to go because I'm the announcer. So yeah, I'm going to give them all the COVID rules and when you get in the pool, and I've got to be, and he's coming in on the inside and he's coming over taking, and I'm going to be doing like the horse racing, but for swimming. And one of the reasons I love swimming, the way in which it's set up is, yes, you have these races, but what's really important is afterwards, everybody gets a sheet showing their times compared to their times before, and the times before that. So it's all about, about progress, about improvement. And I think that's what we need to be looking at, is growth and improvement. So when a parent says, what's my child's grade compared to everyone else? If I were you, I would only answer it in terms of that child compared to that child. So, well, let me tell you, Ali, your daughter is doing really well compared to what she was doing 3 months ago. Right. You know, and even if you say, yes, okay, James, that's nice, but how is she doing compared to the rest of the class? Well, Ali, I'm going to talk about your daughter, because that's the and let me show you some evidence of how she's growing. Look at her handwriting back in June, and now look at her handwriting. Look at the way in which she's setting out her maths. Look at the improvements in the way in which she's writing an essay compared to before. And I keep talking about your daughter in relation to your daughter. Not
and again, with evidence that it's not just a piece of writing, but maybe a video, an audio, and then this makes a huge difference, right?
For sure, absolutely, yeah, totally. So let me go back to this.
Let's continue. Oh no, yeah, go back. I wanted to say let's continue, so we're going back.
No, right, okay, yeah, exactly. So the really, really important, I mean, all of that's important, but the number one that we have to keep reminding ourselves again and again and again and again, it is advice. We need to think about that. Advice is, Ali, I think this is how you could improve. This is what you could do differently. This is what you could focus on. This is what I think you've done really, really well so far. And this is what I think you could add to it to make it better. Do you see where I'm coming from? Right, now go and try it. So notice it's advice, but also it has to be well used. I'm going to share some examples, Ali, of marking in books. Now, I know that marking is not the only type of feedback. In fact, I would say it's not even the best type of feedback, but it is the type of feedback that we spend most time on. Far too many teachers struggle home with a huge pile of books to give feedback to students. And let me share some examples with you. So this is from, I think it's a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. And remember, what we're looking for is the feedback, good advice that's well used to improve learning. Now, look at this. We've got tick, 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 and we've got fabulous rhyming and a nice smiley face. Isn't that lovely? It's so cute. And how much of a smile do you think it will put on the child's face that they've got this little smiley face and fabulous rhyming? I'm sorry, none of that is feedback that is going to help. All of that is a pat on the back. All it is I'm proving to the child's parents that I've seen their little darling's book. All I'm doing is proving to the leaders that I've seen the child's book. But I would not call that feedback. I would call it praise. I would call it like the rubber stamp, because that is not advice. Where is the advice in fabulous rhyming? What is the student going to do as a result of that? Nothing. This example, this is from a 12-year-old, and this is in an international school in Bahrain that I was working with. And again, we're looking for, is it good advice that is well used to improve learning? Well, okay, we've got lots of ticks, tick, 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 tick. And then there's this well done, a good piece of research. But Ali, can you see it says trace fossils ? Now, I think the teacher is wanting the child to write more. I was on this learning walk in this school in Bahrain, and I said to the child, why do you think the teacher has written trace fossils ? And he said, maybe she doesn't know what trace fossils are. I said, that's not very likely, is it? And he went, no, okay. And I said, so really, why do you think she's written it? And he says, well, maybe she wants me to write more about trace fossils. I said, okay, so when are you going to do that? And he said, I'm not. Yeah. I said, well, why not? He said, because she's already marked it. Yeah. She's not going to look at it again. So I'm sorry, if you spend an hour or two going through every child's book like that, don't talk about it as feedback. If you want to talk about it as praise, if you want to talk about it as a pat on the back, then fine. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is not feedback, because it's not advice. Certainly not advice that is well used. It hasn't helped that student to improve their learning or their application. One more example. So this is from a 13 or 14-year-old. So again, we're looking for, is it good advice well used to improve learning? I mean, you know, right at the top there, it says, wow, you show great understanding. Well, that's nice. And then it says, this is a perfect attempt with good use of terminology. Well done. Can you see how the student has responded? Thank you. I mean, it's just like, how much time does it take to read through like 25, 30 kids' books with that amount of writing, to write all these things and then it have no impact? None whatsoever. Now, I happen to know this student very well, because actually this is one of my eldest daughter's books. So she's like, oh,
to tell you they are not your daughters.
She said, oh, Dad, do you have to use mine? But anyway, And she's so embarrassed about it because she wrote it like 2 years ago, and she was like, oh my goodness, look at my writing. But I also therefore happen to know this marking came from the most miserable teacher in the school. I mean, he is such, he's retired now, okay. And I'm not going to name him, but he was so miserable. And I think it would have been better if he had stopped marking altogether, because it makes no difference at all. That type of marking makes no difference. I think it would have been better to stop marking, use that time to go out and get a life, get some friends, have a good time, and come back to school in a good mood. That would have made him a better teacher. Kids would have learned more from him. But as it was, he was spending all this time marking because he was told to, because he was told this is important, that we all give feedback. But I'm sorry, if it's not advice, if it's not well used to improve learning, then it is not helping. That's why there is such an enormous range between the effects. You know, that kind of effect is like way down at the bottom. In fact, it might even be negative, might even have a negative effect because the kids are thinking, so what? So it should be advice. Too often, these are the sorts of comments I see people put in books. This is lovely to write, but it's not advice. Those are lovely comments, but please don't call it feedback. Call it praise. Think about it as praise. But if you want to give feedback, then you need to be saying these sorts of things. You notice the difference, Ali, how the ones on the right are advice that is prompting them to do something more about it. But that's the first step. The second step is you've got to make it an expectation that they will use it. Far too many times, students are like this kid that I showed you in Bahrain who was saying, well, I'm not going to do any more because the teacher's already marked it. You know, we have to make sure that it's advice, and then we have to make sure that there is the opportunity and the expectation that they're going to use it.
I will start collecting the feedbacks given to my daughter in Arabic. So
there you go. That's right. You know, and if there's any teacher from the school your daughter goes to, they go, oh no, no, I don't know what now. Actually, you know what? My wife always organizes to go to parents' evenings on a day that I can't make it, because she said, you're not allowed to go and ask these questions. But yeah, listen, this is not about criticizing, of course not, because we're all working so hard and we're all in a profession that we want to make a difference. And I'm looking at, okay, I want to make a difference without any more effort. I don't want to do more. I just want to do it better. And so I need to think to myself, what are the comments? What are the things I'm going to use to help my students improve? And it is as simple and as complex as that. It has to be advice well used to improve. We can start by thinking, we have to think about it as coaching, not as refereeing. We have to think about it in terms of what advice will I give to my students, so that they think, oh yes, right, I'll do that, and oh, I'll add that, and oh yeah, I'll remember this one. So, and then they need to go and use it. So that's why, and I'm very grateful that you said my books are very practical, because that's the theory. So now what's the practice? So this is what I've put together. These are the 7 steps to feedback. Put these steps in that order, and I would wager that you will make much more of an impact on your students' learning for no more effort. Now, Notice, Ali, I've called it the 7 steps to feedback, but actually the more accurate title would be the 6 steps to feedback plus 1 if you really have to do it. But that's not such a catchy title. So that's why I called it the 7 steps. Notice number 7 is in italics. If you don't grade work at the moment, then don't start grading work, okay? Because grading is really problematic. But I am, what shall we say, a very practical person. I know that lots of us have to grade. We are told to. We're told by our school or by the state or by exact ministry,
the country. So yeah.
So if you have to grade, I'm going to tell you a way to make sure that grading doesn't get in the way of feedback. So number 1, agree the goals. You have to agree what it is we're trying to do. What is the outcome? What are we trying to make? What are we trying to write? What are we trying to develop together? So this could be, the goals could be product ones. So I want you to create something, or I want you to learn something, or I want you to investigate something. These are examples. That's not an exhaustive list, but these are the sorts of examples. So it's often the goals are about outcomes. By the end of this, Ali, I want you to have learned this, or to have created this, or to have found out about this. But the goals might be process-based. So in other words, this is how I want you to collaborate together. This is how I want you to innovate together. This is how I want you to reason together. So notice, it's not about what they create at the end, it's about how they do it along the way. And sometimes that's appropriate. So please, please, please do not think that when you agree the goals with your students, it always has to be about what they end up with. Because often it's really powerful to look at how are they going to do it. So if I'm teaching, let's say, drama, then it's really difficult to identify the outcomes sometimes, because drama is a very investigative, organic process. And so what do? I say, right, well, I want you to get into groups, and here are some ways in which you might work, and I want you to pick at least 3 of them, and those are your goals, right? So one would be listen to each other. Another would be ask each other questions, encourage, challenge, suggest, support. And so I give these ideas, and then I say, right, I want each team, each group to pick 3, the 3 that they think are going to be most helpful to them. And I'm going to keep checking in with you to find out, and I'm going to take you back to those questions. I'm going to ask you, which 3 did you pick? And then as I come to your group, I'm going to be asking you, how much progress have you made so far? So let's say a group has chosen to question each other, listen to each other, and encourage each other. I'm going to say, how are we getting on with that? Can you give me some examples of the kind of questions you've asked each other? In what ways have you encouraged? And then I'm going to say, so now what are you going to do an even better job of encouraging and questioning and listening to each other? So when it's clear, when the goals are clear, you are able to give feedback. You're able to follow those. It can be, of course, a lot of the time, it is about the product. It is about what they're going to end up with at the end. But remember, it could also be about how they're going to work together on that.
You reminded me, James, now when we designed our report card in my previous school. And so we have, you have this kind of a habit or trend. We're putting marks or we are putting grades. And then we reach this whole section of arts. and so
Yes.
visual art, music. And then I said, like, you never go to watch an orchestra and you say you got 100 over 100, or you go to a gallery and then you look
Exactly.
at a piece of
Exactly.
art and you tell him like you got like 50 over 100.
Yeah.
And so I said to my whole art department and PE department, I don't want to put mark on the report cards for these disciplines. I know that parents, maybe they want to see like meeting expectation above expectation, or developing expectation for English and math and the other languages. But for arts, PE, music, drama, we're keeping just a kind of a narrative. So what did we do, and how that child interacted with the work. And so, and it's a lot of like, you need to put effort to convince the teacher, to convince the parents, and even sometimes the student that you don't mark a piece of art. It's or you like it or you don't like it.
Well, that's interesting. That's very, very, very interesting, because I'm going to go back to that list and I'm going to say to you, Ali, if you don't agree the goals, then do not give feedback. Give encouragement, give praise, give support, give guidance, but please do not give feedback. You have to agree what they're aiming to do. So let's say, for example, I mean, I'm talking about your daughter because she joined you the last time we talked, and
she's here and she wants to join, but then I'm just keeping her away. She just got a cat, and then she's playing with the cat.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Now, let's say, Ali, she makes a beautiful picture and she comes to you and says, Dad, I made you this. Okay. And you, like all good parents, you say, that is lovely. Can you tell me about it? And if your daughter says, well, it's a picture of my friends and me, we're playing together and we're having a good time and it's a nice day. So let's say she tells you those things, Ali. They're my friends, we're playing together, and it's a nice day. Ali, she's just told you the goals that she had in her head. And at that point, Ali, you could offer feedback if you want. You could say, wow, I love this. So which friends are they? And do you have any other friends that you would add into the picture? Or how could you show that you are enjoying yourselves? You know, this one, could you put a bigger smile on their face, or might they be jumping with excitement? And this one, what else did she say? Oh, and it's a nice day. Now, you know, you could say, so what makes it a nice day? It's the nice temperature, it's a nice light breeze, it feels comfortable to be outside. So could you put that in your picture? So you notice, Ali, if you ask your daughter, so can you tell me about it? And she tells you some very clear things that she had in her head, then Ali, you can give feedback. But if she comes to you and presents you this picture and you say, oh, that is beautiful, can you tell me about it? And she says, I just did a picture for you. Then all you can do, Ali, is say, well, it's lovely. Thank you. Do not give feedback. You do not give feedback unless you know what it was that she was aiming for, because there is nothing more dispiriting in feedback than to present something to people and those people to give you feedback about something else. So let me go back to your example, Ali. You write this fabulous children's story, and it's your first draft, and you've come up with this brand new story, and you're really pleased with the first draft, and you say, James, what do you think? And I say, well, Ali, there's no pictures, and I think your spelling is pretty bad. And I think you need to concentrate on making sure that it is written in your best handwriting. You, Ali, are going to feel bad because that's not what you were focusing on. What you were focusing on was writing a really nice story that makes people feel happy, that makes them laugh, that surprises them. But if I give feedback about something completely different, that's going to cause you to think, I'm not going to ask him again. Do you see what I mean? Let's say, Ali, you and I visit schools, and the principals of the school say, Ali, James, just take a walk around the school, have a look at lessons, and then tell me afterwards what you think. Now, I dare say there'll be a lot of teachers thinking, why are these two men walking around our school? What are they looking for?
Right.
But if we said, listen, we've been asked to walk around your school, and here's some examples of the sorts of things that we could look for. Could you let us know what you would like us to look for when we are in your classroom? For example, we could look for, what do students do when they don't know what to do? How willing are they to ask questions? Do they support each other? How many kids are focused? Exactly. So, and then we give them a list of criteria and we say, would you choose 2 of them or 3 of them? And let's say, Ali, I'm visiting your classroom and you said, James, can you watch? There's a group of kids that I just don't know whether they're engaged or not. I don't know whether they are pretending to listen when they're not. Can you just take a look and watch? And then we'll talk about it afterwards. How much more powerful would that be when we've got a clear agreement about the focus? And that's what this is all about.
And again, it's this whole idea of the process. Like when I'm visiting your class, James, as a leader or as a coach, I met with you before the class.
Yes.
I enter your class and then
Yes.
I meet with you after the observation. So it's not just
Yes.
like I come and then I leave and then without these discussions.
Totally, for sure. Absolutely. Okay.
We still have approximately 5 minutes just to keep an eye on the time.
I'll be a bit quicker. So once you've agreed the goals, then, and this is really, really important, please, please, please get your students to think about, this is my first draft. This is my first go. This is my model. This is my attempt. Please don't let your kids think that they're doing their work. Let me ask you this, Ali. Let's say you are applying for a new job, and you say to me,
headhunted. So,
well, I know that, and who wouldn't want to headhunt you? But let's imagine, okay, that you had to apply for a job.
Yes.
And you say to me, James, I'm applying for a new job. This is the criteria for the job. And this is my first draft. I've had a go at writing my application, but this is my first draft. James, what do you think? How can I improve it? Okay, compare that situation to you saying to me, James, I've spent all week writing my application. I think it is as good as it could be. I'm about to send it. Could you take a look and let me know what you think? Now, compare those 2 situations. In that first situation, I think you are much more open to feedback because you are asking for advice. You are saying to me, this is my first draft. What do you think? And also, Ali, I'm going to be much more honest with you because I know that that was just your first draft and you can improve it. Whereas in that second situation, you're saying, I finished it. And so what do? Well, Ali, I think it's brilliant. I'm sure you're going to get the job. And if you don't get the job, it's their problem, not your problem. You know, I'm not going to be honest anymore. And you don't want advice. You just want a pat on the back. So please, 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 please make sure students are talking about their first drafts rather than their work. And notice then that when we get to it, first attempt, And then you get the kids to do a self or peer review, and you've got to teach them how to do that. And I've got lots of examples in my book, but you've got to teach them how to do that. And you've got to make sure then that they stick to what are you aiming to do? How much progress have you made? What could you do next? So you're teaching students to follow that. You make sure that they do the edits. And because of time, I'm going to press fast forward to the next bit is really, really crucial. When you give feedback to your students, it has to be advice, advice, advice. That's it. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Give them advice. But can I draw your attention to where am I giving teacher feedback? Before they finish, not after they have finished. I have no idea why teachers would give feedback after a student has finished. That would be like, I mean, I don't know if you like sport, Ali, but I mean, I enjoy watching football and rugby and cricket and so on. And if I was the manager of a football team, it would be like watching my team play the full 90 minutes and only afterwards saying, well, you should have done this and you should have done that and you should have done something else. Whereas all managers, what do? They're at the side shouting orders, and then at half time, right, come here. Right, what we need to do is, and we need to change this and we need to add that and we need to focus on this. In other words, we're giving advice when it can be used. Don't give advice afterwards. You know, when you are applying for a new job, I'm not going to wait until you've sent the application to say, well, Ali, I think you maybe should have added this. Actually, you know, it's just lunacy to give feedback after they have finished. So give your feedback and then make sure they edit it. And finally, if you have to grade, here's the problem. The giving of marks or grades has a negative influence unless you do a few things. Number one, keep it separate. Do not grade at the same time as feedback. In fact, don't even call it feedback, call it grading. And if I were you, I would say to the students, I am not going to give you a grade until you have used the feedback that I've given you. So here's my advice. Here's what I think you could do to make it better. Now go and use it. And when you come back and you show me that you've used it, then I'll grade it. And you know what, Ali, and this is my final point, I have actually come across teachers who say to me, but isn't that cheating? And I'm like, what do you mean cheating? Well, won't they do better as a result of your feedback? And I'm like, I certainly hope so, because that's the point of feedback. And then, no, that's cheating. And I say to them, I think you're confusing cheating with teaching.
Yeah. We
are there to help them do a better job.
And to succeed.
Of course. And leaders, if you've got any leaders, please stop looking at whether teachers have given feedback or not, and look instead at what was the effect. So don't look at kids' books to see whether a teacher's put nice little comments and lovely little ticks. Don't look for that. Don't look for what the teacher has written. Look for what difference has it made. Did the student move from this point to that point? Did the student add something? Did they change something? Did they develop something? So that you can see the impact.
Thank you. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I just need to thanks James again. We're getting all these messages that it was a very inspiring webinar. This is the page where you can see all the connection and social media of James, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then you can also have access to the slides. Again, James, if you want, you can share them with me, and then they will be shared automatically via Zoom tomorrow after 24 hours.
Okay, great. Yeah,
later, later during the day, you will be able also to find this session recorded on YouTube. I just need to remind everyone that what do I have? So this is the YouTube channel. So the YouTube channel is divided into a playlist, and more than 100 webinars they was done in the last year.
Wow.
Since COVID started, and so you can choose any topic, watch French, Arabic, English session. Next month we will be talking about ATLs, approaches to learning, or 21st century skills, so stay tuned. And then you can have a look on the afternoon session and our new workshops. So they are all published for November, the Arabic one, the French one, the English one. And for the afternoon, so after a lunch break, we will talk about effective online assessment. We will answer the question, what if we assessed our assessment? And then we are going to look at unconventional assessment for a non-conventional world. So James, perfect timing. Hopefully we will continue collaborating together, and who knows, maybe something in Arabic in the near future.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you might need to give me a few more years yet.
Yes. Okay, good. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the break, and if it's your lunchtime, like here in Dubai, enjoy your lunch and see you after the lunch. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Shukran, shukran.